Hello and welcome to Olivia's Catastrophe. Today I'm going to Oxford. I'm going to be there for a long weekend. I've never been there before and I'm going to be staying with Hannah and Lizzie, so it's bound to be a lot of fun and I'm planning to take you with me. So let's go. So I thought now could be a good time to give you a bit of an update as we're all getting ready to leave the house. It's day 2 and Oxford is very nice so far. Yesterday I met up with Hannah from La M and we just walked around the city and we got to see some of the colleges from the outside, and we went to the door and the lamppost that inspired C.S. Lewis, had a bit of a catch-up talk over hot chocolate and did some bookshop hopping, I guess, as we went to 3 bookshops. We went to Blackwell's and Gulp Fiction and Waterstones, and I guess because Gulp Fiction was the indie, it was my favourite, but it was nice to just walk around and browse books and look at books and talk about books and not buy books, as the book buying ban is going strong. And as you'll have seen on the way up, I was reading a play. I've got this collection of the Theban plays and I read the first one, which was King Oedipus, and it was good. I really enjoyed it. I thought while I was reading it in the beginning it was quite like predictable and we all knew where it was going to go, as they would have in the time as well, but then things took a bit of a violent turn and got a lot more intense than I expected, and I quite liked that. So it was a good play. It was very neat because I finished it about 10 minutes before the train ended, so it was like just sit down and read the play all in one go, which was really nice. And yeah, after we had our day we came back and we were just like chilling and talking and watching this like YouTube streaming service, which I had never heard about before but was quite entertaining. And this morning when I woke up I read some poetry from this collection. This is Content Warning Everything by Akwaeke Emezi, and I was super excited to start this because I'm currently adoring everything Akwaeke Emezi does and their poetry is just as good. It's amazing. It feels a bit like Sylvia Plath blended with Worcestershire. I think that's the blend I'm gonna pin it as. It feels very much, it seems in some ways autobiographical, the ways that Akwaeke Emezi has talked about their self-identity and their spirituality and how that manifests seems very tied into these poems. I was not expecting as many biblical references as there are in the first few poems that I've read, but it makes sense to have those links between their spirituality and like godly symbols. So the poetry is just as beautiful as the cover is, and I'm really enjoying that. And then while I've been sat here as people are getting ready right now, I've been starting the next play in this collection, which is Oedipus at Colonus. So it's the next one in terms of the Theban narrative. And I just started it, so I have no thoughts, but it's nice to see Antigone because the last play in this collection is Antigone, and that is the reason why I picked up this collection in the first place. So I'm looking forward to like working my way towards it, but I'm surprised by how much I'm enjoying these plays at the moment. I feel like I'm reading very literary because it's like plays and poetry, but when in Oxford, you know? And what are we going to be doing today? So today we're going to the Bodleian Library, and they've got like talks and workshops and events to celebrate Shakespeare's first folio today, and I'm so excited because the timing of that is just perfect for me being here. It was not purposeful, and we're all big Shakespeare fans in this house. As you'll have seen if you follow Lizzie and Hannah's channels, so looking forward to seeing what Shakespearean stuff we can get up to today. Hello, we're on day 3 of Oxford, and yesterday we went to a Shakespeare event which I mentioned at the beginning, and it was really nice. I had a lot of fun writing with a quill, and the talk by Emma Smith, which I didn't put together, was the author of This is Shakespeare, was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it, and now I really want to read This is Shakespeare. And then we came back, and then we went to Gulp Fiction again because it's such a nice bookshop, and we came back and watched Night in the Museum, which I have seen before but was also very entertaining because Lizzie has a great laugh, and so I can enjoy it through watching Lizzie do it. But I also wanted to give you a bit of a reading update because I read further in King Oedipus at Colonus. I think I'm halfway through, and I'm enjoying this less than the first one, but also with the first one I didn't enjoy it until I got a significant way in, and then when there was a major plot twist change of tone. So I'm hoping that this is going to be the same, but it's less predictable, which is what I like about it. And I'm continuing to read content warning everything, but with poetry I read it quite slowly. I read a poem here and there, and that is what I've been doing. But right now we are going to go to Blenheim Palace and explore a bit. Do you guys want to say hi?
Hello!
Wait, one second. I've accidentally been pressing zoom in as I've been talking. I hope I haven't been doing that for too long.
I thought you were just being like, and I really enjoy poetry, but I read it slowly.
But do you want to say hi to the camera? Hello.
You did the wave. Hi!
you can see, I'm back in London. I had a very good last day in Oxford. So after making the apple crumble and just chilling and yeah, just spending time with each other, the next day I did some filming with Hannah, so those videos will go up. I didn't want to include them in this video, and I came back home. We had a very chill time. I set up my Patreon, which is a new thing for me. It's the first time I've ever done this, and I'm really excited to be on this journey. Thank you to everyone who signed up to my Patreon so far. It means the world to me, more than I can even like explain in words, and I'll have links to my Patreon down below in the description box if you want to join us. And while I was on the train back, I finished some books. So let's talk about the books that I finished. So I finished reading the last Theban play. So I quite like the fact that I read one on my way up, one while I was there, and one on my way back, and that was Antigone. Antigone follows this king who is told certain things and he doesn't believe them, he doesn't think it's going to happen. So he lets his pride and greed for power overpower good common sense. And Antigone is one of these women who is just fighting for what she believes in and standing up against everybody who says she can't do what she can do. And I really enjoyed this play. I had a really good time with Antigone's character. I loved how stubborn she was and how she was like, she had such a strong backbone. No matter what other people in her family said or other people around her, she did not stop. She was relentless, and that's always very impressive to see. And even though misfortunes befell other characters is a tragedy, I find it very interesting that Antigone was one who was chosen as the title of this play, as the one who gets spotlighted, as the one who stood out for what she believed in first and foremost. I really appreciated that. I love that it has a takeaway message and moral of, you know, greed and power is not everything. Listen to good common sense. Listen to the women in your life, because sometimes they're telling you what you need to be doing. And I do think also that in all of these plays I would have cut out the chorus. I just really don't think the chorus has added anything to any of these plays except the first one. So I would have just cut out the chorus. But I know like the chorus is what makes these plays at the same time, so it's a bit blasphemous to say, but that's what I'll say. And I also finished reading Content Warning Everything by Akwaeke and Emezi, and I really enjoyed this poetry collection. I've been reading it in like bits and pieces throughout the whole trip, and on the way back I just read the last few poems. So I think these poems split into two for me, well maybe three. And the first lot of poems are the ones where Akwaeke Emezi is imagining themselves as a little god, as a god that walks on contemporary earth, but also a god who calls Jesus like their brother and like little Auntie Mary and things like that. So I found that very interesting, how they managed to bring the like Christian biblical like godly figures down to earth, down into the contemporary, and put themselves alongside them and what it would have been like and how things would have changed. I thought that was all very interesting. As someone who knows Christian imagery fairly well, as I am a Christian myself, it clinched something, and I just found it like such a unique way of talking about these figures that I'd never seen before. So I really quite enjoyed that, and I know that Akwaeke Emezi has talked about their spirituality before, and you can see that coming through and shining through in those poems. I also really liked this particular poem, which I think this form of poem must have a name because I've seen it done more times than just in this collection, but I love when it happens, when you have a singular poem but you can read it in multiple ways. And the way that Akwaeke Emezi does it in this collection is that they have a poem in one column and a poem in another column, and you can read the lines vertically and it makes sense, and you can read one column and then another column and they both make sense, but they could give you two very different outcomes to the poem, yet they still kind of share the same theme. It's masterful, and I think that's really difficult to do in poetry, and I love the way it was done here. I've only seen it done twice before in a way that I found effective, so I was very impressed with that. And then the third kind of poem are the ones that really have a lot of sexual imagery and a lot of like sex imagery that they didn't always work for me. Some of them work for me better than others. I think some of them work for me more than others, and it was interesting to read this in light of just having finished You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, because that is also quite, that book doesn't actually have that much sex in it, but it seems physically charged, and I would say that these poems felt very physically charged. Even though the concept was not about sex, the imagery kind of was, and that combined with the themes kind of it made the poems feel almost vulgar in some ways, but that's just based on the imagery, because when you take it down a level, it's actually talking about love and the body and your identity. And my camera is flashing battery-wise at me, so I'm going to cut myself off there and I'll talk about it more in a wrap-up, but I think that's a conclusive thought process. I loved being in Oxford. It was so nice. Please let me know in the comment section down below if you could visit any city in the UK that isn't London, what city would you want to visit? Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't you forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!